Hello, cabin crew. Well, our story today goes back into the Old Testament again, and we pick up our story about the people of Israel in the wilderness. Now, do you remember they'd been led by Moses and they'd gone into the wilderness, they'd escaped from Egypt, and they got to the promised land and they sent in the 12 spies and they saw that there were big fortified cities and that with walls all around them, and that there were people there that were fierce warriors, and they were really scared and said, no, don't want to do that. So in fact, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. But two of the spies who went in were Joshua and Caleb. And they'd said, no, it's fine. If we trust in God, we can do it. Now, Moses got to 120 years old, and then in the wilderness, he died. And God raised up a new leader for the people of Israel, and that was Joshua. So, after the 40 years were over and some battles went on, finally the people of Israel had come back to the promised land, and here they were by the River Jordan. And they were looking across the River Jordan and thinking, we need to go into the fortified cities. We've got to try and defeat these people. Oh dear, how are we going to do that? Well, Joshua had a look at it and he thought, well, I don't know. We went in and spied the land out, didn't we? I think it might be a good idea to send a couple of spies to go and have a look and see what the city is like. And that is what he did. He sent a couple of spies across the River Jordan and they went into Jericho. Now the two spies went into Jericho as arranged, and they started looking around. And then it got towards night time and they needed somewhere to stay and to hide for the night. And they got to a house of a person called Rahab. Now that Rahab was a woman, and she quite often did have men to stay. And this time she welcomed them in because she knew they were Israelites and said, we've heard about you. We've heard about all that you've done as a nation and how you've defeated your enemies and how you went through the Red Sea and escaped from Egypt. And we're quite frightened, but I want to be on your side. I want your God to be my God. So she welcomed the spies in. And then, guess what? She had to hide them. Now, she hid them up on the roof. And she'd got up on the roof, and remember it was a flat roof, she'd got some flax. Now, flax is a bit like this. Can you see those stalks? And can you see they're long and thin? And you would, instead of having them upright like that, you'd have them lying down so that the sun could dry them out. And you'd use them to make linen garments. Well, she'd got flax lying on her flat roof. And the spies went and hid underneath it. And it's just as well they did, you know, because very soon, knock, 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 along came some soldiers. And they said to Rahab, we think you've got some spies here. You need to bring them out. Just as well they were hidden then, isn't it? And Rahab said to the soldiers, no, these men have already gone. If you go out the city quickly and go and have a look for them, you'll find them. So the soldiers went out of the city gates, and the city gates were shut for the night. And the soldiers went to look for them. But were they there? No. Of course, the spies were hiding, weren't they, under the flags?
The Faithful Hall of Fame, Rahab. This is Rahab.
Hi.
Rahab lived in the town of Jericho in the Promised Land. Rahab was not an Israelite, and she made bad choices. But God had a plan for Rahab, even though she was a sinner.
All right.
Now God told his people, the Israelites
Hey, that's us.
to go into the promised land. So Joshua sent 2 spies to search the land around the city of Jericho. The 2 spies came to Rahab's house to stay the night. But the king of Jericho heard that there were spies in his city, so he sent orders for Rahab to bring them out. But Rahab hid the spies
Hello.
We're out, you hear?
and told the king's men that it was true that the men were at her house, but she did not know where they were now.
I don't know. But
She told the king's men to go quickly to find the spies, because they could not have gone far.
oh no.
Oh, right.
So the king's men rushed out to the city in pursuit of the Israelite spies. All the while, the Israelites hid on Rahab's roof. So Rahab went to them and said, I know the Lord has given you this land. We have heard of the great acts that God has done for you. Your God is the God of all the heavens and the earth. So please swear to me that you will be kind to my family. The spies agreed to this, and Rahab helped them escape from the city. Before they left, they told Rahab to tie a scarlet rope to the window.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oops.
Phew.
This rope would serve as a mark for Rahab's house and would remind the Israelites of their promise to her.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And so the spies were on their way. For 3 days they hid from the king's men who were looking for them. Finally, they returned to Joshua and told them all they had seen. Rahab was remembered for her faithfulness, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies and put her trust in the one true God.
Well, have you ever played hide and seek? I have. It's a really good game, isn't it? You hide and somebody tries to find you. Well, have you ever played hide and seek where you could get killed if you're found? That was the situation for the spies. They had to be really quiet and really still and really brave too, because the king's men, the soldiers, were looking for them. And actually, Rahab had to be really brave too, because she sent the king's men off, didn't she? And she protected the spies and kept them hidden, and she could have been in danger too. Now, Rahab's house was in the city walls. And here she is, look, welcoming in the 2 spies. They've been coming round and she's saying, yes, you can come in. And she brings them in and then she hides them, remember, up on her roof under the bundles of flax. And it's just as well, as we say, that she did, because here come the king's men looking for the spies and saying, hand them over. And of course she says, no, they're not here, they've gone. You better go out the city gates quickly and find them. Okay, now the problem is once the city gates were shut, the spies didn't have a way of getting out too. But Rahab says to them, actually, you know, we've heard of all the things that have happened to your nation, all your people, and how God has been with you. And everybody in the city of Jericho are really, really scared. They're scared of what is going to happen. Your God is probably going to give you Jericho. Please, when that happens, would you please look after me and my family? Will you promise to do that? Well, the 2 spies then come out of hiding and they say to her, yes, we will. We will promise to help you when we come to the city of Jericho. But you need to help us still a little bit further to get us out. But I tell you what, see this red cord? I want you to tie it in the window such that anybody, and then have all your people, your friends and family, come into the house, keep them safe in the house, and then we will say nobody in the house will be harmed. So Rahab does this. She trusts in God and she trusts the word of the spies. So she lets them down out of the window with a rope. Here he comes, look, coming down. And here's the other one already down. So they managed to get down outside the city walls and escape into the darkness while the soldiers and the king's men are looking for them, because they can't go through the gates are shut. And they promise Rahab that if she keeps the red cord in her window, then when they come and capture Jericho, she and all her family will be safe.
You're watching Live 3 Kids.
Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will get crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will get crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. I wanna live each day like anything can happen. Can't hardly wait to see what's next. I wanna face this world with wonder and excitement. Face every challenge every day. Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will be crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will be crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Walk through the valley, climb mountains high. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. Can't hold me back now. I'm gonna fly. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. Walk through the valley, climb mountains high. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. Can't hold me back now. I'm gonna fly. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. I wanna live each day like anything can happen. Can't hardly wait to see what's next. I wanna face this world with wonder and excitement. Face every challenge every day. Baby, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will be crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will be crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. I'm trusting you, God. You are good.
Now, one of the things Rahab says to the two spies, having heard all the things that God had helped them with, was that it made the people in Jericho quite frightened, because they heard that the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Joshua 2 verse 11b. They'd heard that the God of these people was the real God, the one who stepped in, the one who parted the sea, the one who rescued them. So he was the real God. The Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. And that's why it's the scripture memory for this week, because he's a true and living God. And no wonder the people in Jericho were afraid. Well, after the two spies had climbed down from Rahab's house, remember it was in the wall, so they climbed out the side that was outside the city. It meant they went away and they hid in the hills for about 3 days. And they waited till the king's men had finished looking everywhere and gone back to the city. And then the two spies crossed over the river Jordan again and went back to Joshua. Now, what did they say to Joshua? They said to Joshua that all the people in Jericho are really afraid because they know our God is the real God, and they are living in fear of us coming and attacking them. And that was just what Joshua needed to hear, wasn't it? It really encouraged him because he knew that God was with him and that God was going to help them.
This is Rahab. Rahab lived in a town called Jericho. Actually, she lived in a house that was part of the outer wall of Jericho. And God used Rahab to help his people enter the land he had promised them. The problem was that the city of Jericho was in their way, so two spies went to check it out. When the king of Jericho found out there were Israelite spies in his city, he sent people to find them. And even though Rahab knew it would be really dangerous if she got caught, she chose to protect the spies by hiding them in her own home. She did this because she knew that God was on the side of the Israelites. She had heard the stories about how they escaped from Egypt and how God split the Red Sea for them. And she knew that if God had told them to defeat Jericho, it would happen. And she hoped her family would be protected. So the spies promised her that if she hung a red rope in her window and didn't leave her house, her family would be protected. Then they climbed out of the window and went down the city wall. Rahab was brave when it wasn't easy. She trusted that God would protect her, and he did. And even better, many, many, many years later, Jesus was born into Rahab's family. And that's a little bit about Rahab.
Now, have you ever had to be brave and stand up for what you believe is right and true, and believe and trust in God? Well, Rahab did, didn't she? And the Bible tells us in the New Testament that she's actually praised for her faith in God. And do you know what? The story doesn't end there. We hear about Rahab later, because after they capture Jericho, it's a story later on, Rahab comes and lives with the Israeli people, the Israelites, and she marries a man, and they have a son called Boaz. Boaz marries Ruth, and their grandson is David. And David becomes king in Israel. So in fact, and then through David, all the way down, we get to Jesus. So do you know what? This woman Rahab didn't have the best start in life at all. She made some really bad choices. But she made a brilliant choice when she decided to put her faith and trust in God, our God, the real God. And through that, she became, in the family line, right through to King David and through to Jesus. Amazing, isn't it? Because she was brave and she had faith in God.